Question by the President is 4 minutes. The supplementary question must emanate from the initial question that was asked. Honorable delegates, I now call upon the Honorable President to respond to question number 1 as asked by Honorable Muimang. Honorable President, you may take the podium.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, the development of public infrastructure is essentially necessary for effective service delivery and economic development. This is why we are determined as this administration to massively increase the scale of investment in infrastructure. Through this investments in infrastructure, we have determined that we want to and will turn South Africa into a building site. However, public infrastructure projects that are delayed or abandoned do have a negative impact on the ability of communities to access services. To address this challenge, Chairperson, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure began the identification of delayed and abandoned projects within its portfolio during the 6th Democratic Administration. Through a presidential proclamation in 2019, the Infrastructure Development Act was moved to the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. This moving of the Act has enabled the Minister to develop a more holistic approach to infrastructure development in all spheres of government and the private sector through Infrastructure South Africa. The Department of Public Works and Infrastructure has identified a number of key pillars that drive the infrastructure investment process in our country, such as ensuring that we have the institutional arrangements for the implementation of the National Infrastructure Plan for 2050. One of the other pillars is to ensure that there is better preparation and prioritization of infrastructure projects. This has been a lack of capacity in a number of our government structures. Other proposed reforms include multi-year budgeting for infrastructure planning as well as for infrastructure delivery, and also the speeding up of permit granting and the approval processes. The task of identifying incomplete and abandoned infrastructure projects is being implemented throughout our provinces. The completion of these projects does require dedicated capacity that may not be readily available. To address this, the department has issued calls for various professionals in the built environment to provide expertise to the department and to collaborate and work with them as required. One of the mechanisms at an executive level to monitor progress on the identified projects is through our Seola program. In this program, site visits are conducted to check the status of projects as well as to see whether the plans that have been put in place are being implemented. Follow-up visits are also conducted after a few months, to ensure that the recovery plans are implemented. This Seola program is bringing stakeholders such as the local and district municipalities together to unblock any issues related to block infrastructure and outstanding approvals. And through our district development model, we will be able to make even greater progress in this regard. This program demonstrates effective interventions that can be achieved as we move along, enhancing the intergovernmental working process that we have embarked upon. And as we move on, we are finding that the district development model is being strengthened and is being embraced more and more by various key players. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. The follow-up question will be asked by Honorable Mimwang from the African National Congress. Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Your Excellency, the President, we welcome the implementation of the Seola program to address all incomplete, delayed, or even abandoned public infrastructure, as the President in his response has indicated. Your Excellency, next week the National Council of Province will visit all 9 provinces to undertake a rigorous assessment and oversight of this incomplete, delayed, or even abandoned public infrastructure projects, following the briefing that we had with the 3 ministers as part of our ministerial briefing this week. My question is, what support in terms of coordination will the President give to the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure and National Treasury in ensuring that there is an undertaking of a holistic cost assessment and situational analysis, as well as cost of incomplete, delayed projects, so that there is accountability to Parliament, but also accountability to the people of South Africa on the progress that we are making to make sure that as we launch South Africa as a construction site, this chapter is closed. Thank you, Honorable President. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable President,
Thank
please
you.
respond.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Mimwang, thank you very much for informing me that the National Council of Provinces will be visiting all 9 provinces to go and examine the status of activity or progress on projects that have not been taken forward or unimplemented or incomplete. One of the things that Minister McPherson, Minister of Infrastructure and Public Works, did on his assuming duties was to come and spend quite a bit of time with me to discuss precisely what his mandate is, and also to outline to me what the department that he leads, together with Deputy Minister Zikalala, intends to do. I was quite satisfied in the focus that they want to bring to bear on their work, and also in turning South Africa into a construction site. And the assurance I gave him was that I would lend as much support as possible from the presidency to ensure that their work rises to a higher tempo, because I could see the great enthusiasm that he has in ensuring that there are building sites all over the country, and indeed that they should also, through the Seola program, start tackling incomplete or uncompleted building sites or projects. And I informed him that similarly we would be interacting with Treasury to ensure that Treasury gives them as much support as possible to ensure that they do their work. we've identified infrastructure as one of the key drivers of economic progress and development in our country, and also a job creator. So we will be bringing to bear every assistance measure that we can give them to ensure that this end is achieved. I'm particularly pleased to hear that from Parliament, particularly the National Council of Provinces, you are taking this matter as seriously as you will be by visiting various provinces. It is important that the whole of the state, both Parliament, the executive, work together, and the executive at all levels, national, provincial, and local, as well as district, to ensure that we focus on infrastructure development and also address the many projects in our country that lie fallow, that have not been completed, and to go to the depth of the reasons why those are like that, but also to remove all the impediments to enable those projects to be completed. So we will be together focusing on that, and I informed the Minister that they have my full support and every measure of assistance that we can give them from the Presidency to enable them to do their work. I love the built environment, and I do believe that the built environment is a key marker of the progress of any country. And wherever one goes, if you see how the built environment is being improved, that's when you see that indeed the country is moving forward and there is economic development. And so we want to see yellow equipment throughout the country, strewn throughout the country, and we want to see dust being turned into buildings and into projects that are going to serve the interests of our people. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
The next follow-up is from Freedom Front Plus, which will be asked by Honorable Briet.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Mr. President, I was so fortunate when you now said that you are looking at investigations with regards to why these projects are where they are and aren't incomplete, and the Honourable Chief Whip mentioned the costs and treasury involved, and that is kind of where my question leads to go, because many of these incomplete, delayed and abandoned infrastructure projects, and you can specifically see it in the Free State, have been subject of corruption and in many instances also of litigation. And I would like to know whether you and your relevant cabinet ministers have instigated any investigations or legal action against individuals or groups involved in extortion or corruption within these infrastructure projects, and also then just further to say what new programs or reforms are being proposed to prevent these criminal elements from infiltrating public infrastructure projects, and how do you project will we stop that in future? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable President.
Thank you very much, Honourable Briet. Indeed, we are, as we begin the process of increasing our focus on infrastructure build, are going to be, as I said, be focusing on why some of those projects have been abandoned, have been left unfinished, because there are reasons. And some of the reasons have to do with corruption. Some of the reasons have to do with incapacity, where either those who were asked to develop those projects either under-budgeted or overpriced, and all those will be gone into, because we do need to go to the root cause of the abandonment of all the projects that now today lie as sore thumbs throughout the landscape of this country. It is a very sorry sight as one travels around and you see projects that were started, and some of them are just foundations, slabs that have been constructed where houses were supposed to rise, and not much has been done or achieved. And so those are being investigated. Some of those were focused on by the Commission on State Capture, and some of those are being done by the Special Investigating Unit, and some of those are already being prosecuted. There are individuals and people who embarked on these projects fraudulently, and they are now facing the might of the law. So we are saying that things are going to move forward, and we are going to ensure that those who are responsible for any act of corruption, particularly in the infrastructure space where projects have not been concluded, will be investigated and followed up. And at the same time, the reforms that we are embarking upon are going to be aimed at ensuring that this does not happen again. And one of those was to reform our procurement process. But the other important one, because most of these projects are executed at local government level, we are, through the Ministry of Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs, focusing on how to strengthen local government and to make local government work more effectively in the interests of the people. And so that we close all loopholes for those who may well want to be fraudulent and execute acts of corruption at that level. So the reform process that we are involved in is all-encompassing and is also going to be focusing on the execution of projects. And the focus that the National Council of Provinces is having by visiting provinces is also going to help, because it is going to shed light, as we are going to from the central national government level, on what is done at all levels of government. Because when light is shared and when people know that they are being watched and things are going to be followed up, it will be reducing the temptation for acts of corruption and also fraud. So our increased focus on all these matters that have to do with projects is, in my view, going to lead to a much better governance system that will lessen and finally get rid of acts of corruption in all these matters. Thank you very much, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable President. The next follow-up question will be asked by Honourable Makesini from EFF.
Thank you, National Chairperson. Mongameli, i-country yethu ibonakala ingaqhubekeki ngezi project because abantu i-project azigqitywa ziyamiswa, and xa uchekile inxesha elenziwe le budget i-affect uba i-project zingaqhubekeki, and lento ibonakalisa ukuba singajongeki kakuhle sililizwe laseMzantsi Afrika ngoba lento iyaphoxa. Xa sijonga amabanga, i-poor planning is a problem yokwenza ukuthi i-project ezi zingagqitywa ngexesha. I-dodgy procurement iba yenye yezinto esibonakalayo kuba nayo ibamba inxaxheba kule nto. Naba bantu esiba-appointayo abe-project managers abangekho incompetent baza nalento sifuna uyibone as a country singakwazi uqhubekeka phambili. Esifuna ukuyiva ke ngokumongameli, sifuna uqonda how far ngala mega city wawusithembise yona as a country, ngoba sifuna side siyibone in our lifetime. Enkosi mongameli.
Honourable President.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Makesini, thank you very much for raising all these matters, and particularly some of what gives rise to the abandonment of projects. And as you have enumerated, some of the reasons are lack of capacity in evaluating projects properly, and that would be possibly technical capacity, financial understanding of evaluating projects properly, and also the issue that you raised of corruption. And the other issue, of course, is overpricing. Some of these projects, through acts of corruption and fraud, are overpriced, and in the end, those who are meant to execute them find that they are not able to finally execute them. And of course, the other one is lack of skills, where people don't have the requisite skills, as you correctly say. This focus on building cities is something that I spoke about, and the good thing about it is that as you go through our various provinces, a number of our provinces are now beginning to focus on developments that could lead to building cities. Gauteng, for instance, is in the process of finalizing building a smart city around Lanseria. And this in itself was inspired by what I said at the national level. Other provinces are also beginning to focus on developing new cities. And if you look at the area between Johannesburg and Pretoria, what we have done in the 30 years is to develop that whole area, largely driven by, yes, by the private sector. And this is where, for instance, just a new built environment area or landscape has just risen, and the public sector now needs also to focus on a number of areas in our country. And Gauteng, in many ways, is going to be taking the lead in building a smart city in the Lanseria area. And indeed, many other provinces are beginning to focus on that. Building a city does take quite a while, particularly given all the reasons that you enumerated. And as they say, Rome was never built in a day. It does take time, but the important thing is that we're beginning to raise our ambition. We're beginning to see what is possible. And of course, we are constrained by a number of issues, including the reasons that you enumerated, but the ambition is there. And I am beginning to see a number of our provinces beginning to aspire towards having infrastructure built that is going to develop our country. And as we said, as we focus on infrastructure, we will be building structures, both public facilities for our people, and the private sector will come in tow as well. So it's going to be an overarching type of built environment improvement process that we will embark upon. And in the end, we will be able to turn South Africa into a building site. I see it coming, I see it on the horizon, and this is the time in the 7th administration when we will begin to gain momentum, because the things that we are now focusing on through the Infrastructure South Africa is to focus on capacitating those who can work on infrastructure, putting in place the financing mechanisms, ensuring that we embark on reforms that will prevent corruption, and increasing the skills that are going to be needed for increasing our built environment. So yes, we are going to turn South Africa into a construction site, and it is going to happen. Whether we like it or not, it is coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable President. The last question on the first question, the follow-up is from Honorable Brits from DA.
Mr. President, it is a sad indictment that 30 years after democracy, South Africans cannot travel between cities via train. They cannot even travel 20 kilometers from outside the city center into the CBD via train. It is therefore clear that the current infrastructure is inadequate to deliver this, and that a holistic approach is needed for South Africans to have the dignity of a life where they don't need to wake up at 4:30 in the morning just to get to the CBD at 8 o'clock in the morning via public transport. When a functioning rail system would allow them to drastically reduce travel time and cost. Mr. President, you just signed a three-sphere Western Cape MOU on police. Will you do the same on transport to get our people moving?
Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The movement of our people is one of the areas that we are focusing on. And this is one of the ways in which we want to reduce the cost of living. The cost of living for our people has largely also risen around their transportation. And this in many ways is also due to the apartheid special architecture, which relegated poor people to faraway places from where they work and do business. And we are now focusing on how we can increase and even repair transport lines. Public transport is one of the defining markers of a really good developing economy, where we can transport people through public means, whether it be by buses or by rail, is what we are seeking to reform. Yes, indeed, our rail system has fallen into disrepair, but we are in the process of rebuilding it, particularly for commuters. That is one of the areas that we've been focusing on. Lines that had been closed in a number of urban areas are now becoming opened. And I have heard stories of individuals who say, my transport costs have now come down considerably because I now can get on a train and go to work, whereas I used to have to pay a lot of money. In some cases, almost 30 to 40% of people's income goes towards transport. So reducing the costs that people are having to incur when it comes to transportation is one of the areas of focus. Yes, and we have taken steps, not only to repair rail, but also to capacitate levels of government, to say, yes, you can focus on ensuring that the rail system that goes through your area is well run and also well executed. That is one of the areas that we focus on. Yes, you ask, having embarked on or overseen the signing of a memorandum of understanding between three levels of government, national, provincial, as well as local, when it comes to policing. There needs to be greater cooperation amongst all those levels of government to ensure that in the end we reduce the costs of transport, costs of travel for our people. So yes, the answer, we would like to see enhanced cooperation, and this falls within the broad realm of cooperation in government. Intergovernmental cooperation should affect all sectors, and not just the police, but various sectors, so that we all work together as structures of government to improve the lives of our people. So transport is one of the areas that, yes, we want to focus on. And we want to raise our gaze as well, so that we have interprovincial travel that is made easier. And that is why we've also approved a project where we will have easier transport between major metros and build train lines, improve train lines so that our people can travel better. For instance, we are going to embark on travel between Johannesburg and eThekwini or Durban. And that is going to be a major commuter artery, and between Johannesburg and, for instance, Messina. And many of these areas are going to be focused on as we move on. So they are on our radar screen, they are on our sites, and we are going to embark on that as we improve infrastructure in our country. Thank you, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honorable President. We are now moving to question 2, which is asked by Honorable Pina to the President. Over to you, Honorable President.
Honorable Chairperson, we launched the Presidential Health Compact initiative in 2019. The Health Compact that was entered into then is a framework of cooperation between critical sectors in our country to improve health outcomes. And through this, we were able to bring together various key role players in our country, in government, in business, in labor, in civil society, in academia, as well as traditional health practitioners, and also allied health practitioners and patient user groups, including those who manufacture health products. Now, this was a formidable coming together of all these key role players in one of the most important areas that affect our people's lives. In 2023, we convened the second Presidential Health Summit and produced what we call the second Presidential Health Compact for 2024 to 2029. On the 22nd of August, Deputy President Paul Mashatile signed the compact on my behalf, as I had an eye infection at the time, and that was the signing of the Health Compact that brought together signatories from a number of representatives or sectors. The compact aims to ensure multi-sectoral involvement in the health systems, strengthen the healthcare system, and to prepare it for the implementation of the National Health Insurance. Some stakeholders, specifically from business, chose not to sign the second Health Presidential Compact. They had a number of reasons why they did not come. Having come the first time round, they cited their concerns with regard to the Health Insurance Act and references to NHI in the compact. We believe there is nevertheless good reason for these stakeholders to be involved in the work needed to achieve the aims that are contained in the compact. Through the compact, we aim to invest in a capable, compassionate, fit-for-purpose workforce in the health sector. We aim to strengthen local manufacturing of health products and ensure health infrastructure meets the necessary quality standards that our people require in the health system. The compact also seeks to use the capabilities of the private sector to enable equitable access to quality services for all citizens. It seeks to maintain the gains that have been made in the National Quality Improvement Plan to ensure users experience the same quality of care, whether in a state or a private facility. The compact also aims to ensure adequate community engagement and inclusivity in the health sector, so as to ensure that other people don't feel excluded in health care, where they get inferior health care services. Importantly, the compact aims to ensure that The National Health Insurance is implemented affordably, deriving value for money, and also eliminating corruption. These are the objectives which all stakeholders can support and work towards. We therefore encourage all role players to be involved in pursuing all these objectives, noble objectives at that, so that we can ensure that we have a healthcare system that will serve all the people of our country. The implementation of the compact is overseen by a joint monitoring and evaluation steering committee that brings together all the key stakeholders who are part of the compact. All these people who attended the recent signing of the compact agreed on also its terms of reference, which include strengthening the health system in preparation of the implementation of the National Health Insurance. We hope that all stakeholders will use this forum to engage. Now, through continuous engagement, which I am calling for even on the NHI, stakeholders should be able to find each other and to find solutions to some of the problems that still exist. By working together on the fundamental issue on which we agree, we will be able to make a significant contribution towards improving the quality of healthcare for all South Africans. And this we will be able to do through engagement, through not boycotting, but also through talking to each other on a continuous basis. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President, for such an elaborative response. I will now invite a follow-up from Honorable Pina from DA.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Achtbare President.
Middag.
Minister Motsoaledi took a very belligerent stance in spite of your indication that you were open to discussions and despite widespread concerns regarding the NHI. Are you, Mr. President, and Minister Motsoaledi not concerned that the NHI Act is a breach of an individual's right to dignity and freedom of choice, as enshrined in Section 10 of the Constitution? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Honorable President, you may respond.
Thank you very much. I want to reiterate that the process of engagement is a true hallmark of how I function as President and how the government that I lead also functions. To the extent that you may well have heard Minister Motsoaledi, I want to assure you that he is one of those ministers who is open to engagement, to listening, and to talking. And yesterday he had a fairly lengthy discussion with me over lunch, and we discussed this matter. And we both agreed and underscored the need for exchanging views with those who may well have concerns. And those who have concerns are South Africans. They are South Africans whose views we must hear. I should tell you that Business Unity South Africa have written me a fairly long letter where they are raising their concerns, as have others. And they have requested that I should engage them. And I said to the minister, we meet them. We are going to meet them and hear the concerns that they have been raising over a long time. Now, the National Health Insurance is now an act of Parliament. I signed it, having been passed by this Parliament. This Parliament passed the act, and in doing so, it took into account the various inputs that had been made by a multiplicity of people through the length and the breadth of the country. But in its own wisdom, this Parliament, both the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, in the sixth administration, then passed the Act, which I signed. There are people who still want to talk about the implementation of the NHI. And I'm open that we talk about how this Act is going to be implemented and to hear the concerns that they have, which is precisely what I am going to be doing in the course of the coming few weeks. And am I concerned about eroding the dignity and the freedom of choice of South Africans? No. The dignity and the freedom of South Africans is guaranteed in our Constitution. And I cannot ever be seen to be violating that. Nor can this House, as Parliament, be seen to be violating. And if any act or law that we have passed is seen to be violating that, we should all know as South Africans that the Constitutional Court will be the arbiter, will declare whether that is so or not. But that does not prevent us from examining the views and hearing those who may well have issues. And as I said, it is about how we implement and how we strengthen our health system. That is what we need to focus on. Can we have a health system that is going to deliver good health services to South Africans? And rather than just be fetish and be concerned about the notion of the national health system, let us be concerned about how we improve our health system, how we ensure that there's good infrastructure in our hospitals, and how we ensure that our health practitioners are well trained and they execute their work well, and they treat South Africans with great compassion as they go to the health service centers. That should be our focus. And I call on all of us as South Africans to focus on that issue, because that is the important issue. And of course, the costs of healthcare is what we need all to be concerned about. Costs of healthcare are escalating all over the world. And whichever country you try to examine, you'll find that they are escalating. Now, our government has determined that we are going to reduce the costs of living. And one of the ways in which that can be curbed is through the implementation of the National Health Insurance. And I want us to work together to see how we make life better for all South Africans and how we reduce the cost of living, the cost of healthcare for all South Africans. And the National Health Insurance therefore gives us a great opportunity, all of us, to embark on this journey, because healthcare affects everyone. Whether you're today healthy, tomorrow you may not be so healthy, so it is therefore important that we focus on how we can improve our healthcare system. And I invite you and everyone else to join us in this journey of making sure that this is achieved. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. The next follow-up question is from ANC, which will be asked by Honorable Mokweli.
Thanks very much, Chairperson, honorable members, Khotso, Mr. President.
Dama.
Chairperson, Your Excellency, my question is whether, in light of the recent discovery of widespread corruption involving lawyers, hospital, staff, and patients in fraudulent medical negligence claim, government is looking at using the signing of second presidential health compact to rally all healthcare practitioners and professionals to fight wage and concerted fight against corruption in the health sector and ensure that there are harsher consequences for those who are involved in grand theft and looting of public resources that would have otherwise been used to expand access to healthcare to our people. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable President, I think it was more of a comment, maybe if you would want to speak to it as well. Over to you, Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. A wonderful comment at that. And all I would add is that, yes, the issues that you raise, Honorable Member, is precisely what we want to focus on. There have been those who have focused on fraudulent activities or executing fraudulent activities through the healthcare system. And some of them have been through legal actions and through misrepresenting either patients or whatever. And they have often sought to find loopholes that they can utilize to defraud the system. And in many ways, as we often say, that corruption is a crime against the people, because that weakens our healthcare system, and it is precisely this that we're now focusing on. I've signed a number of SIU directives to have investigations launched to deal precisely, in large measure, in the healthcare sector, where we've either seen acts of corruption. We want to reduce and eliminate corrupt activities in the healthcare system, and it is through vigilance and paying more attention that we will be able to do so. So we want to focus on those who are perpetrating those acts of corruption, and we will find them, and they will be dealt with. The good thing is that as we strengthen our criminal justice system, we will be able to find those people, and we want to remove as much room for them as possible so that those acts of stealing resources that are meant to improve the lives of the people of South Africa are limited and are eliminated. So thank you very much for your comment.
Thank you, Honorable President. The next follow-up question is from MKP, which will be asked by Honorable Mokoena.
Good afternoon, President. The National Health Insurance is facing widespread criticism over its feasibility and potential for corruption. And can the President then provide clear details of how the government plans to fund the NHI sustainably and to ensure accountability and prevent it from becoming another misguided state program? What safeguards will be in place to protect it from becoming the same failures that we've seen in the public institution? And I hear the President saying that there will be SIU interventions to catch those who are defrauding the system. However, we'd like to know what preventative things or programs are in place to stop or to curb people from actually trying to rob the system. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable President.
A number of, if I can call them, mishaps that we have had where acts of corruption have been perpetrated in a number of ways, and by a number of people, have taught us and continue to teach us a lot of lessons about what not to do as we deal with the lives of our people in terms of seeking to improve them, as well as we deal with the public resources that we are mandated to manage. And your question is, how are we going to fund the NHI? I mean, of course, the NHI process of funding is ongoing, and I've often said that it is ongoing, it is being clearly determined. Our Treasury and our Health Department are working vigorously through a process of doing precisely that. And the national health systems in many other countries are usually funded through various means, public resources and all that. So we will be able to determine exactly how that is going to be done. But in terms of managing the resources, particularly the funds, we are going to put in place checks and balances and systems that are going to make it very difficult for those, or impossible for those who may well want to engage in corrupt activities. And if you look at the Act itself, it has a number of checks and balances and various mechanisms through which we will be able to manage the resources well. And quite often, the scared tactic or issue that has been raised by a number of people revolves around the management of the fund, the National Health Insurance Fund. How well will that be managed? The government does manage a lot of money in various funds. And yes, in some cases, there are fraudulent activities, but they are often found out. And our national treasury is one of the best treasuries that you can find. And it is going to, working together with the health department, make sure that we set up a fund that will have good governance measures and systems that is going to ensure that we limit and eliminate acts of fraud. And many people, as I was saying earlier to the honorable member, want to talk about that as well. And that is why I say, yes, I am open. We are open to engaging and talking about how the NHI will be implemented. And some of the areas that they raise is about how the fund will be managed. And it is this that we are willing and to talk about and to see what, or to hear rather, what their views are in as far as the management of such a huge fund is going to be like. So talking to other people, engaging and collaborating and finding very good systems of managing these public resources is precisely what we are going to do. And our main objective is going to be to ensure that we have a health system that is going to deliver a better health to the people of South Africa. And we will therefore want to use various mechanisms to ensure that that indeed becomes a reality. So be rest assured that we will put in place the necessary checks and balances that will prevent acts of robbing the people of South Africa of their resources. Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable President. The last follow-up question, this question is from Honourable Kennedy, EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. Matabama, Mr. President.
Matsiari Awudi.
President, the reality is that South Africans do not want this health compact. As our people living in rural areas, in townships, in informal settlement, will still be subjected to the same public hospitals and clinics, while on the other side, the affluent ones will have the utmost benefit due to their proximity to the private institutions. Therefore, this bill will have no impact on the lives of those who suffer under our public health system. So, in light of this, has the President considered opening clinics for 24 hours, 7 days a week? If so, could the President please provide details in this regard? If it's not like this, what is hindering this? Thank you, Mr. President.
Honourable President.
Honourable Member, Chairperson, and Honourable Member, thank you very much for your question. I beg to differ with you when you say the majority of people or South Africans do not want this health compact. That is not true. As I said earlier, we signed a health compact in 2019. And the health compact was, if you like, a harbinger, a preparatory process of the development of our health system, leading us to, say, the national health insurance. Many role players, including grassroots organizations, including your traditional health practitioners, were there from the rural areas when they signed the health compact in my presence. And similarly, with the second health compact, we still had a number of organizations. And those that I spoke about who did not come are those who raised concerns about the national health insurance, particularly its implementation in relation to one or two sections thereof. And even those who have concerns, their concerns really go around one or two sections of the national health insurance. In the main, most of them say we support, but they also support the principle of a universal health coverage, which, by the way, honorable member, is, if you like, a dictate from the World Health Organization or the United Nations that has said that through its sustainable development goals, we must move, countries must move towards embracing and having a universal health coverage system. This is the journey that we have embarked upon. Now, if anyone thinks that we are mad or have lost our minds, I'd like you to know that we are following the global guidance of which we are part of at the international or global level. So it cannot and is not true that many do not want the health compact. Now, but you raise a very important and specific question about our clinics. That could our clinics be opened on a 24-hour basis? That is our aspiration, clear aspiration in a number of areas in our country. The hours of opening are continuing to increase. And in support of what you're saying, honorable member, is as I go around the country, as we hold in Bezos, these are some of the things or sentiments that are articulated by our people. They want ever open clinics. They want to be able to have easy access. And I agree that yes, we should have health centers, clinics that will be open and accessible all the time to our people. And of course, it is those budgetary constraints that we have, where, for instance, opening up a clinic means that you more or less need to have 3 shifts, the morning shift, a day shift, and a night shift, where you need to have people that are always going to be present, and they require the relative payment that needs to be made to them. So as our financial fiscal position continues to improve, I see us acceding to that type of aspiration that you're articulating, which aspiration I agree with. And I agree with our people who say we want clinics and or health centers that will be open most of the time. So I agree. It's a question of ability, largely driven by the constraints that we have. So you'll be pleased to know that I agree with you. So that's one thing that the EFF today can say the president agrees with.
I'm sure, honorable members, you have noted that honorable president was asked completely new sets of questions, of which he dealt with diligently. This is indeed indicative of the government that is ready and willing to serve its people. We have noted that and we appreciate that, honorable president. We now move on to the next question, which is question number 3. The question is asked by ANC, Honorable Mananiso. Over to you, Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. With that accolade, I thought you were about to say, President, you can go home now.
We're still enjoying your President. We're enjoying ourselves with you here today.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, much higher levels of inclusive growth are needed to achieve sustainable employment in our country. That is why this 7th administration, that is made up of the Government of National Unity, has placed inclusive economic growth as its apex priority. However, it will take time for such growth to meet the scale that is needed in our country. This is why a range of complementary measures are required to address poverty and enable economic participation. The Presidential Employment Stimulus, which we launched, as you may recall, during the period of COVID, is a program, or an initiative rather, that enables support for public employment, livelihood support, as well as enterprise development. The Presidential Employment Stimulus has contributed to over 2 million jobs and job opportunities, as well as livelihood improvement opportunities since its inception in 2020. The Social Employment Fund, which is implemented by the Industrial Development Corporation under the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, has created well over 100,000 jobs. The fund creates work that serves the common good at community level, supporting food security, informal settlement upgrading, combating gender-based violence and femicide, amongst many other forms of work. Subsistence farmers have also been supported to enhance their production, and this has contributed to increased levels of production and releasing a number of hectares of farming land under cultivation. Support has also been given to our metros to expand their public employment programs, and we have a former mayor of a metro here, a former mayor of eThekwini, who can testify to this, because he had extensive discussions with me on the benefits that our people were drawing from this program in eThekwini. There he is, you can ask him. Since 2020, as many as 4.5 million young people have registered on the SA Youth Mobi Network, which was established by the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. And now this platform has enabled young people to access just over 1.4 million earning opportunities, as potential employers now utilize this platform to source young people for employment. Many employers now visit that platform as they seek to get young people for employment. A key innovation is the Jobs Boost Outcomes Fund, currently in its pilot form. Jobs Boost is a program of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. It is led by the National Skills Fund, an entity of the Department of Higher Education and Training. Now, the fund is designed to incentivize effective skills training by paying training providers only when young people have been placed in jobs. In this way, training providers are encouraged to provide skills that employers actually need and ensure that job candidates are equipped to access and sustain employment. Now, to address poverty and the high cost of living, all municipalities across the country are directed to implement the indigent policies. And quite a bit of money has been set aside by Treasury in this regard. Well over 70 billion rand has been made available. I used to think it was much less than that, but Treasury has said, President, it is actually quite a lot of money, almost 76 billion. Has been allocated for the year 2024 to 2025 to assist indigent families in our country, thus reducing the cost of living. And it will help to support 11.2 million indigent households that need the support. So through this, we are enhancing the whole process of assisting our people. And according to Stats SA, only 2.7 million indigent households have had access to free basic services such as water and electricity. And we are encouraging and directing our municipalities to ensure that they register more people and not utilize the money for other ends, but to reduce the cost of living for our people through these measures that have been embarked upon. Now, the Department of Cooperative Governance is working together with our provincial counterparts to support our municipalities to raise awareness on this. Now, these and many other measures is exactly what we are doing, Honorable Chair, to reduce the cost of living and to address the scourge of poverty in our country. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. The follow-up question is from Honorable Mananiso from ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson, and Dumela, Mo President.
Dumela.
My question to you is that, are there any initiative that the government has in terms of covering for those who are 35 and above, those who are marginalized, vulnerable, excluded, in terms of the triple challenges of inequalities, poverty, and unemployment? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable President.
Honorable Chairperson, yes, Honorable Member, I have been at pains in explaining that our interventions to address the challenge of unemployment should never be seen as limited and only focus on young people who are below 35. They are much broader than that. And the very good example is the presidential employment stimulus. When we launched it also to encompass all those who are unemployed. And in the course of implementing it, much as it may have been depicted as a youth-focused one, it has also brought in people who are over 35. It is focused, for instance, on improving livelihoods. It has focused on people who are involved in subsistence farming, where we have supported hundreds of thousands of our people in improving their economic livelihoods, in subsistence farming, in enterprise development, and all those have been with a view of addressing the challenges that our people are having on an overall basis. So the notion that we're focusing just only on just those who are below 35 is not true. We are focusing on all our people who are facing challenges. Now, employment has risen in an exponential, unemployment rather, has risen in a horrible manner in our country, and we need to focus on all sectors of society and not just focus on one. Of course, the young people bear the heaviest burden because 60% or so of young people in our country are the ones who are most unemployed. And we obviously need to focus on them, but not at the expense and to the detriment of those who are above 35. So we will focus also on those who are above 35 and open up opportunities for them to eke a livelihood from the growing economy of our country. Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable President. The next follow-up question is from Honourable Farmer from PA.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Very tall man.
Honorable President, it really is an honor for me in this moment, as I was one of the school of thought at the time that was expecting you to follow up Tata Madiba in 99. But as our lives are in the hands of God, He sometimes manages things another way around. But this is a huge moment for me. Honorable President, in light of the question, youth unemployment with specific reference to colored youth, what is your Cabinet's plan with a reference, black in general and African in particular, with particular reference to coloreds not being seen as Africans, and the challenges it creates for our colored youth in seeking employment? Thank you, President.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable President.
You say this is a huge moment for you, Honourable Member. This is a very tall moment for me. I often comment about people your height when I go to South Sudan. One day you should go with me to South Sudan. We should.
Get a date, I will go.
We are all Africans. We are all Africans born and bred on this continent, and the utilization of the term at the height of our struggle, as we were prosecuting the struggle in the way that you explain it, was the way in which we focused on the way the oppression was manifesting itself. Let's face it, African people in our country were African as people, and we are all the same people, were facing the sharpest end of oppression. And indeed, people who are colored in our country were also facing real hardship under an oppressive system. So it applied to all of us. And today, as we move on with our developmental processes, we are not focusing on one national group, we're focusing on all. And we are saying we need, as a non-racial country, and a country that is seeking to create cohesion in South Africa, to unite all the people of South Africa. What government does, and indeed what society also does, must unite all of us. We must embark on processes that are going to see to the development of all our people, be they white, be they colored, be they African, be they Indian. All of us need to be able to say, yes, we are developing, and employment programs must also focus on that group that you are talking about, colored young people and all young people in our country. And in fact, you will find that our employment stimulus program has encompassed all. It is not focused on one group. It is an overarching group and has brought in a number of young people, a number of people right across the national groups in our country. South Africa is a country where all of us belong. It belongs to all of us. And no national group must ever feel that the one is favored over and above the other. We are all the children of this country. And what happened in the past is precisely what we must deal with collectively. And as we deal with it, we must never fall into the temptation that one group is favored more than the other. We want to see development raising all boats. We must see development focusing on all of us. And as we do that, of course, there will be emphasis that is laid on the circumstances that all of us have faced. And as we focus on the circumstances that each group has faced, it must all lead to the development of all. So we're never going to fall into the temptation that says relegate one group to the bottom and raise one group. We're saying we are raising all the groups in our country and making sure that, yes, there is progress that will apply to all the national groups. If we were ever to focus just on one group, we will be violating the precepts of our Constitution. Our Constitution is very clear about equality and also very clear about taking measures to engender progress and development of all those who have suffered very, very terribly under the process of inequality and racial discrimination. And so, as racial discrimination affected various groups in our country, we've got to redress those imbalances. And those imbalances also affect colored people in our country as they have affected Africans in our country, and we must all therefore develop and become one cohesive nation that is on the process or in the process of development. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. We now move on to the follow-up question, which will be asked by Honorable Ryder from DA.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Welcome back to the NCOP, Mr. President, this time in its 7th iteration.
Yes, it's good to
Mr.
see you
President,
here.
the Freedom Charter lists employment challenges, poverty and inequality as key areas of focus. Mr. Mandela also mentioned these challenges when he had his famous debate with Mr. de Klerk way back in 1994. And these three aspects have since been standard in every single ANC manifesto. With President Kgalema Motlanthe then being the first on record to put them together and call them the triple challenges. Now, anyone who's listened to ANC speeches since then will agree that triple challenges has become one of the stock phrases to be inserted into every speech. But in spite of all of this focus, unemployment is at an all-time high, poverty remains as challenging as ever, and the Gini coefficient has worsened. Now, ANC policies are clearly not working, and the voters agree, which is why they delivered a government of national unity. The GNU, Mr. President, is an ideal opportunity to take a look at new ideas and for these to be discussed and tested. What has Cabinet done to evaluate policies, to find areas where compromise can be sought with a view to driving GDP growth for the benefit of all South Africans? Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ryder. Honorable President.
Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Ryder. It's good that you're still one of the old-timers of the NCOP.
Very few of them left.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Honorable Member, you will know, of course, that when we put together the Government of National Unity, it was underpinned by what we call the Statement of Intent. Now, the Statement of Intent is a clear set, or contains a clear set of principles. And one should never see it as a compromise. That is clearly not a compromise. It is a very clear statement that says we need to focus on what will take our country forward. And those principles include what we need to do from a policy point of view, from an execution point of view. Now, I don't see a compromise in any of those. It is a unity of purpose. Unity of purpose that has brought all those that agree with the principles that are underpinned by our Constitution, rule of law, respect for the Constitution, and seeking the development of the people of South Africa through a growing economy, the creation of jobs, and all that revolves around clear policies of what we need to do to execute what we have set out in the Statement of Intent. A Statement of Intent is a really beautiful document around which 10 parties have coalesced to focus on how we take our country forward and how we can improve the economic situation in our country, how we can create jobs. And in the course of doing so, we're now developing a clear medium-term development plan. A clear medium-term development plan that is going to guide the 7th administration for the next 5 years, where we will work together as a government of national unity. Last night I had dinner with the various parties of the government of national unity, and each one of the parties that were at that dinner table all confirmed that the government of national unity is here to stay. We recommit ourselves to the government of national unity, and we are going to work to implement the Statement of Intent and everything that is set out in there. And that includes improving our economy, growing our economy, creating jobs, making sure that there continues to be rule of law, increasing the capacity and improving the capacity of the state, and addressing the issues of poverty and inequality. Now, there is unity of purpose, unity of commitment when it comes to that. So if you say this is a compromise, it's really a clear commitment to improve the lot of South Africans. And last night, there wasn't much wine flowing around, no. There was a lot of conversation and recommitment to addressing the challenges that face our country. It was a beautiful evening. I wish you were there, even as a fly on the wall, just to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. We now move on to the last follow-up, which will be asked by EFF, Honorable Cyril Ramaphosa.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. In a population of above 60 million, 30 million in South Africa live in poverty, 18.2 million in extreme poverty, 13.8 million are experiencing food poverty, literal hunger and starvation. Mr. President, there were lesser people living in poverty before you became president. There were lesser people unemployed, lesser violence against women and children, lesser murders, lesser femicide. Millions of our children under your presidency experience multidimensional poverty, whether deprived of healthcare, housing, nutrition, information, water, and sanitation. These harrowing statistics have never dropped since you became president. Instead, they continue to rise under your presidency. poverty has worsened in South Africa since you became president of South Africa? Whose poverty are you referring to be prioritizing since 2018, when it's not reflected statistically and in the lives of women and children who are at the bottom of the food chain and whose conditions have worsened since your inauguration in 2018 to date? Thank you.
Honorable President, again, I've not heard any question that has been asked. However, if you so wish, you may respond to the statement. Whether is it of intent or what, I don't know. But you are at liberty to respond to it.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I've listened to the Honorable Member a few times. And one thing that she's really good at is having a statistically driven mind. She's very good in regurgitating statistics, and with the greatest of respect, I should say some of the statistics that you put forward are a bit skew and flawed. But with great respect, I say, I did not hear any question being put forward. I just had...
Speaker, point of order, please. Chairperson. Ngicela ukuthi sihloniphane, Chairperson. Ngibuzile question ngithe ku President, whose poverty are you referring to be prioritizing?
Just a moment. I have not given you a platform. You are already speaking, Honorable Member. You have risen on the point of order. We have afforded you an opportunity to ask a follow-up question, of which you made that statement, and accordingly afford the President to address you on the issue that you have raised. Over to you, Honorable President. You may respond to the statement that has been made before the House.
Honorable Chairperson, it's a pity that Honorable Member did not allow me to continue, because much as she did not really put a question forward, what I was going to favor her with is precisely a response to the comment that she made, because she asks, or she seems to ask, which poverty am I referring to? And of course, we have always said that, as Honorable Member said earlier, that yes, we face a triple challenge in our country, and we've never shied away from that. We've never shied away from saying there is rife poverty in our country, there is inequality, and indeed there is unemployment. These are the challenges that our country faces, and these are the challenges that the Government of National Unity is determined to address. As we entered into the 7th administration, and as all the 10 parties committed themselves to a program of action, we are aiming and we are determined to ensure that, yes, we reduce incidence of poverty in our country. The poverty, yes, that affects millions of South Africans, unemployment that affects millions of South Africans, and to reduce inequality in our country. This is what we have committed to doing. And so, if you care to know and to listen, the Government of National Unity is committed to doing precisely that. And the vigor and the commitment that we are underpinning our work with is such that as we grow our economy, as we embark on more and more developmental initiatives, we will be able to reduce unemployment and create more jobs. And through that, I'm certain that we'll be able to reduce poverty as well, and in the end address the challenge of inequality. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable President, we now come to question number 4, which is asked by Honorable Makesini from EFF. Over to you, President.
Honorable Chairperson, the policy direction of the Government of National Unity was outlined in the opening of Parliament address that I made on the 18th of July 2024. The key constitutive ideas of the Government of National Unity are set out in the Statement of Intent, as I've said, which was signed by all the constitutive parties to the Government of National Unity. So those parties agreed to certain basic principles, including a firm commitment to respect the Constitution and the rule of law. The principles included a commitment to promote accountability, transparency, integrity, and good governance. The parties also agreed to a minimum program as the foundation of the work of the GNU. These were developed into priority actions that will form the basis for the medium-term development plan of our government and the 7th administration. As indicated in the opening of Parliament address, the Government of National Unity will dedicate the next 5 years to actions and interventions that advance 3 strategic priorities. Firstly, to drive inclusive growth and job creation. Secondly, to reduce poverty and to tackle the high cost of living. And thirdly, to build a capable, ethical, and developmental state. We will pursue growth that is inclusive and transformative. We have said that inclusive growth must support the empowerment of Black South Africans and women. We will continue to pursue programs that encourage broad-based Black economic empowerment, employment equity, and support to small and medium-sized enterprises. We will continue to protect and uphold the hard-won rights of workers and continuously strive to improve the conditions in which they live and they work. In advancing our 3 strategic priorities, we will, amongst other things, massively increase the scale of investment in infrastructure, as I said earlier. We will expand the presidential employment stimulus, and as part of poverty alleviation measures, we will ensure that local government implements the indigent policy. We will review existing housing policies to enable people to live closer to economic opportunities. Importantly, we will invest in the people of South Africa. This includes efforts to achieve universal access to early childhood development. It includes the expansion of vocational and technical training in schools, as well as post-school institutions. As part of the implementation of the NHI, as I said, we will strengthen our healthcare system. To improve the capability of the state, we will work with provincial governments to stabilize local government and improve service delivery processes. We are strengthening law enforcement agencies to address crime as well as corruption. We recognize that the GNU is comprised of parties from across the political spectrum, representing a range of political and ideological perspectives. However, we have been able to agree on a common program of action that provides a basis for far-reaching social and economic transformation. This is what we have committed ourselves to, and this is what we are determined to execute, to improve the lives of South Africans with clear determination and an action-oriented approach to doing what is needed to ensure that South Africans get a better life. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. There is, however, a follow-up question from Honorable Makesini. Over to you, Honorable Member.
Manbulele Mongameli. Helen Zille commented that the government that you lead, in essence, is a coalition between yourself and the Democratic Alliance. She also called that uyibiza i-GNU to appease abantu beparty yakho abangaxolanga ngalento osibafake kuyo. Then wathi okunye, you will never embark to any program of action without bona beyondosa a Democratic Alliance. Based on those things, ebethetha ngazo ke mongameli, ndifuna ukuqonda the opposition ukuba bazimisela ukuba baza kuphosa yonke into eniza ngayo regardless uba nithathe kwi-executive i-decision is-majority ukuthi nizakwazi njani uredressa the apartheid and the colonial legacy and ukumake sure ukuthi lo government uyakwazi ubuyisa umhlaba kubantu, niyakwazi ukudila nge-unemployment so that le challenges sinayo as a country sibeka kwanokubala. Ndiyabulela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I must say that as the Honorable Member seeks to characterize the government of national unity as a government between myself and the DA, that is a completely wrong characterization. It is not a government that revolves around the president and another political party. It's a government of national unity of 10 political parties that are involved in a government of national unity. We have determined, as I said earlier in my main reply, to work together as a government of national unity. How anyone, including the person that you referred to, seeks to describe it is just really a matter of polemics. It's just somebody who is whistling out there in the wind and trying to paint a particular color to what we are seeking to do. Those that are involved in a government of national unity know, and this was also confirmed last night when I met all the parties, we engage with each other with respect, with recognition, and with acceptance of the role that each of the parties play, united in the project of improving the lives of South Africans. And so therefore, those who have this notion that it is only myself and the other party or two parties are completely wrong, and that is a complete wrong reading of the current situation, and may I say even a reading of where this country seeks to be going. We are moving forward as a united government made up of 10 political parties that have agreed that we are going to address the challenges that face the people of South Africa, working together. The people of South Africa determined and decided that we should work together. And that was the mandate they have given us all, to say, work together to advance our interests. And that is precisely what we are doing. I said that we are underpinning everything that we are doing through the statement of intent, which is very clear in terms of what we need to achieve. And we know that having set out a very clear program of action, we will execute that together. Now, I appointed a cabinet that is made up of the various parties. Some are represented in Parliament, and many of them are represented in the executive. And I'd like to give you a front row seat to see precisely how that is working out. It is working out so well that everyone who's been appointed in various positions are showing a great deal of commitment, not to work for themselves, not to work for their own parties, but to work for the people of South Africa. And that is the strength of what we are seeking to do. And this is the government that I lead, and I lead it in the interest of the people of South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable President. We are now, can you take your seat, Honorable Gotzel? Thank you. We're now moving to the next follow-up question, which is asked by DA through Honorable Gotzel. Over to you.
Honorable President.
Honorable President, can we allow him to ask the question?
Yes.
Good afternoon.
I am at your mercy, Honorable Chairperson.
Mr. President, you actually took most of my question by repeating the promise you made to the people of South Africa on the 18th of July, and you partially repeated it for the lady in the back there. But I would like, with your permission, to just highlight the third priority, and that is the promise of a capable, ethical, and developmental state. So if you and your government are then still committed to these priorities, my question to you is, why is it that Minister Thembi Simelane is still in your cabinet as the Minister of Justice?
Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. You will know, of course, Honorable Gotzel, that as soon as the story around herself arose, I asked for a report that will outline precisely what the actual situation is. She has just submitted the report to me with all the documents and the attachment, which I am now studying. And I have said publicly that I'd like time and space to look at this, to examine all this, and be able to see how we take this matter forward. So we embark on various processes, and I think all organizations and all entities do embark on processes. So I'd like you as well, Honorable Gotzel, to allow this process to ensue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable President. The next follow-up question is asked by UDM, Honorable Peter.
Manbolis, as Honorable Speaker of the NCOP, Mamum Tsipan, Honorable President of the Republic of South Africa, Molo President.
Molo Nagu.
My President, my question is so simple. It's just for the clarification of the GNU. Ngizawuthetha isiNgesi ke President today, so that to make things simple.
Ngiyasiva nesiXhosa kaloku.
Oh,
kodwa thetha ngesingesi khumsha.
Thank you, President. Can funda ukhumsha nami. Thank you, President. In the case where parties in the government of national unity are unable to reach consensus regarding the implementation of the basic minimum program of priorities contained on the statement of the intent for 2024 GNU, should the matter be taken to Consultation Council for mediation? Whether the council decision would be binding or taken as a recommendation by members of the GNU. The reason why, President, we're asking is because we don't understand the actual gathering of this GNU. Because the same people, we as the same people that were in this GNU, were still challenging you, President, meaning we don't understand what we're in for. Thank you, President.
Like some crayons.
Honorable President,
Any crayons.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. We have sought to explain over and over what the Government of National Unity is really all about. It's about executing the mandate of South Africans. The South African people did not give a single party an outright majority to set up government on its own. So, that having been done by South Africans, it required that we should all put our heads together and say, how do we take this country forward? And in doing so, the 10 parties got together and said, we should work together as the people of South Africa have determined and decided, and form a government of national unity, since no single party achieved a 50+1 majority on its own. So it requires that there should be a measure of cooperation. A statement of intent was then drafted, which I should say, having been drafted, a number of parties were then consulted. Nearly all parties were consulted that are represented in our parliament. In the end, 10 said very clearly, we subscribe to these principles that are set out in the statement of intent, and we are therefore committed and determined to work together collectively as the 10 parties, and those 10 parties having agreed to do so, I then had the opportunity, having been elected the President of the Republic by this Parliament, to then pick or appoint a cabinet that is made up of the majority of those parties, and some are represented in our Parliament. And those members of the executive, including those who are in our Parliament, having signed to the statement of intent, have set out a clear program of where South Africa should go on the mandate of the people of South Africa. And of course, as I said earlier, we're all from different parties that have different manifestos, parties that have different or adhere to different ideologies. But what unites us is the statement of intent, and this statement of intent, having united us all, we also inserted the governance processes that will govern our relationship. In case there are any areas of difference or disputes. Last night when we met, we decided that in ensuring that we enhance good working relationships, we will have what we call a processing team, a team that will process whatever needs to be addressed by the leaders of all the political parties. So that processing team will identify those issues that we need to discuss and, say, resolve from time to time. And embedded in the statement of intent, of course, we did say, if there ever was an area of difference, and let me put it up front, that of course, because we come from different political parties, there will always be differences. As there are differences in any relationship, whether it's between friends, between partners in a marriage, or in an organization, in a company, or even here in Parliament, all over. So there will always be people who see things differently. We therefore need to find ways of resolving those. Now, I don't work on the basis that, we are going to differ to a point of even parting ways. I've often worked on the basis of what Nelson Mandela taught us, that for every problem there is a solution. And so you try to find the solution. And so we underpin our working together, and we confirmed this yesterday, that we will find solutions to whatever problems that may arise, because problems will arise, and we should never kid ourselves and think that we will not have challenges and problems. So we will find problems. So how will we take them? To arbitration or mediation? No, we will engage amongst ourselves. We will find each other, and of course we've set up a system that has been tried and tested in solving problems, sufficient consensus. But for me, sufficient consensus means that we build consensus amongst all of us. So we build consensus, we convince one another, and find solutions for the problems that we may have. And that is the way that the government of national unity will proceed forward. So that is why I continue saying to our people, support this process that you, as the people of South Africa, decided we should have through the vote outcome that you landed us with. So we are here because the people of South Africa, through their votes, delivered this outcome, and we must make it work. So last night we said we're going to make this work, and we will, as we face challenges, find solutions, as you will see as time goes on. From tomorrow onwards, you'll find how we find solutions, or you'll see how we find solutions to continue with this government of national unity. Iyo ke le ndiyakuthemba ukuthi uvile. Xa ufuna ukuthi ndithethe ngesiXhosa ndizawuthetha ngaso ngenye imini. Ndiyabulela.
Thank you, Honorable President. The last follow-up question is from Honorable Modise from ANC.
Thank you so much, Honorable Madam Chairperson. President Masiar.
Masiar Yabuti.
Piggybacking on the response, especially from question 1, has the government put in place measures to track and monitor the performance of members of the executive of Government of National Unity and their individual performances in advancing priorities that have been set aside for the 7th administration and implementing cabinet resolutions as the cabinet Lekgotla resolutions as the basis for medium-term development plan for transforming South Africa and redressing the imbalances of the past? Is there a critical role that the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation is playing in the monitoring of the performance of Government of National Unity to ensure that everyone adheres to the medium-term development plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable President.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Yes, simple answer to those two questions is that yes, we are finalizing the performance agreements that every minister and deputy minister must sign with me. And the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation's job is to make sure that we evaluate what we are doing in government, the whole of government, whether we are implementing what we said we would implement. The medium-term development plan, which is being finalized now, is going to set out precisely what we need to do, and thereafter, every department, every member of the executive, through their performance agreements, as well as the plans that they have in terms of the departments that they lead, will know exactly what needs to be done. And that also set out the time frames. We are determined to move quickly, to even raise our ambitions and make sure that we act with greater urgency and greater determination to improve the lives of the people of South Africa. We are facing enormous challenges, and those require an executive that is agile, that is determined to move quickly to implement all those plans. So yes, that is what we are going to do. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable President. We are now moving to question 5, which is asked by Honorable van den Berg from FF+. Over to you, President.
Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, a fundamental principle on which our democracy is founded is that South Africa, as I said earlier, belongs to all who live in it and united in our diversity. We are one of the most diverse countries in the world, which has brought together all of us who live in this country over many years. And we have found a good way of living side by side in our diversity and forging a common future as the people of this country. And in making this assertion, we recognize the injustices of our painful past that unfairly treated and discriminated against the majority of South Africans on the basis of the color of their skin. The Constitution provides for the enactment of legislation and other measures to promote the right of everyone to dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. The Constitution is clear that everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. To give effect to the equality clause in our Constitution, in the Employment Equity Act was enacted. The Employment Equity Act provides for the fair treatment of South Africans and prohibits any unfair treatment or discrimination directly or indirectly against any person based on race, based on gender, disability, or on any of the prohibited grounds listed in the Constitution. This also applies to job applicants. Section 5 of the Employment Equity Act prescribes that all employers must take steps to promote equal opportunity in the workplace by eliminating unfair discrimination in any employment policy or practice. Therefore, any employment legislation, policy, or practice that unfairly discriminates against anyone based on their race, their gender, or any other prohibited ground is illegal. The Employment Equity Act is one of the several measures we have put in place to correct the grave historical injustice of economic exclusion. The historical discrimination against black people and women in the workplace has produced an economy that does not provide equal opportunities for all. Not only is this unjust, it is also limiting the potential of our people in our economy. I often say that we had constructed, or the past rulers of this country had constructed an economy that did not work on all its potential cylinders. Although we have made progress since the advent of democracy, we still have some way to go. Although we've taken a number of actions, there's still a lot that needs to be done. According to the annual report of the Commission for Employment Equity for 2022 to 2023, white people account for 63% of top management positions in our country. Yet they comprise only 8% of the economically active population. By contrast, Africans account only for 17% of the top management positions, even though they account for 80% of the economically active population. The situation is better at the professionally qualified level, Africans account for nearly half of all professionally qualified positions. White people account for a third, and Indians and colors account for around 10% each. These figures clearly show that while there are areas of progress, we have yet to reach a situation where all people have equal opportunities in the workplace regardless of race or gender. All people in our country, including from so-called minority groups, should be able to have equal access, as I was saying earlier, to employment opportunities and to equally contribute to the economic growth of our country without feeling excluded, without feeling marginalized, but feeling that they are part of the whole of South Africa. And it is for this reason that we say once again that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable van den Berg, you may ask the follow-up question.
Thank you, Chair. Eerbare President. South Africa is yearning for the blessing of a demographic dividend, brought about with higher employment and leading to less poverty. However, populations go through more than one demographic dividend as they develop. In stage 1, per capita income will rise as we move away from poverty and high birth rates. Stage 2 can be described as the middle income groups, able to save a little. At stage 3, a person or group will have money to reinvest into society, transforming into more employment and tax revenue. However, as a diversified nation, population groupings are not all functioning at the stages, and I'm not referring to race. The Multidimensional Poverty Index, MPI, identifies deprived groups and districts. This argument then forms the pivot point for government spending and policy, and is used to justify discriminative BEE and affirmative action legislation based on race towards a minority group. But it only serves to cripple the functioning of a state body that can now not run towards economic growth as one leg is impaired and can therefore not help build and play their part. Honorable President, eradicators of poverty are lower birth rates, employment opportunities, and an employable workforce. Surely now, should we not look at repealing discriminative BEE and affirmative action as we look at the GNU statement of intent, namely, working toward establishing a non-racial, united society and improving the lives of all who live in it? If we as a nation desire to go forward, can we not also address this issue?
Honorable Member, I'm afraid your time is up. You haven't even asked a question yet. So, Honorable President, if I may afford you an opportunity to respond to the statement that has been made by the Honorable Member. You may not, you may if you wish, you so wish, President.
I do wish to respond. Honorable Member, Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much. I think the clearly unstated question was, should we not look at repealing, say, black economic empowerment as well as employment equity? And I have to say the answer is no. And in fact, it will not be to the advantage of this country to repeal these laws that are transformative. Now, I'll tell you why I say they're transformative. You yourself have said that we could impair the whole body by just, in the way I'm paraphrasing, walking on one leg and pair one leg. And that's precisely what I said, that the way our economy was constructed, it was constructed to favor one national group in our country. And that is why I say it was not working on all cylinders. And in some ways, that is why our economy has not been able to unleash its full power, because it is like saying people must enter a race and you tie the leg of some of the participants and say run. And that's precisely what has happened in our country. Now, through these measures, through these laws, we are seeking to ensure that there is equality, that there is equal involvement, equal participation, which if you do not have the encouragement through rules and laws, may in some instances never be done. Now, one of the things that I found really refreshing amongst a number of South Africans, including white South Africans, is that some of these laws have now enabled them to sit back and say, wow, this entity that we are involved in does not speak to good representation. We need representation, demographic representation. We need women to also be brought up. We also need black people to be brought up to key positions. And in many ways, that is happening as I encounter a lot of South Africans. And this is not happening just on its own. It's happening because it's being encouraged by the laws, the rules, and the regulations that we've put in place. They are raising the level of consciousness and awareness. And recently I had a wonderful experience, just so that you know, in the cattle industry, where for a society, a cattle society, which has forever been run just by white males, and they paused as they were now choosing their next leadership. They paused and said, wow, we've always just had white males running this society. We now need, in view of the level of consciousness, the new laws, the regulations that are abroad in our country, we now need to include other genders, other people. And that has led to women also acceding to those positions of leadership. That has led to black people being brought into those positions. That would never have happened, Honorable Member, on its own. It required laws, it required regulations, it required the raising of consciousness. Now, I would like to believe that there is not much resistance among South Africans. And in fact, we should see this as unleashing the power of inclusivity, of doing things together. Now, I also see it in the Government of National Unity. The Government of National Unity has given rise to that. When I look at my cabinet, I see how in the past we used to have a cabinet 30 years ago, which was all male and all white. Today you see a cabinet that is mixed, where every South African national group is represented. And that is the beauty of our situation. And I think we should embrace that rather than fear, and fear ghosts, the unknown. That is what we should move away from. Let's embrace the diversity, the rich diversity that this country has given rise to. We are one nation, and let's make this nation work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable President. The next follow-up question is from Honourable Swart.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President and Chair. My question has actually halfway been asked, but if you can just elaborate. You know, I acknowledge your positivity. you feel at ease at NCOP. We engage. Mr. President, the DA's economic justice policy, and we're also now part of the GNU, seeks to create that economically inclusive South Africa. South Africa that belongs to all of us, free of any superficial differences between her beautiful people. It proposes a just society in which economic opportunities are available to all, and people who have the capabilities to make use of those opportunities through an approach which should address the key drivers of inequality of opportunities, as well as broader socioeconomic needs. This proposal does not use the race as the framework as redress. It uses the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Will your government, after the 30 years of democracy, consider looking into such a policy proposal, policy that grow South African economy to the benefit of all the beautiful people? I thank you, President.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable President.
Honourable Chairperson, the answer is a simple one, yes. What we are about, and which is clearly set out in the statement of intent, is precisely to grow the economy of our country to advantage the people of South Africa, and to do so collectively, working together. This is what we are all about, and should be all about as South Africans. Inclusivity, working together, collaborating, addressing the problems and the challenges of our country as a people who have embraced our diversity, our unity, and our need to address the imbalances that were caused by our past. Our painful and horrible past was such that it divided us. It advantaged one group over another group. And this is what we are now given the opportunity to solve. And to solve it in the most peaceful manner, in the most consensual manner, and in the most collaborative manner, without anger, without retribution, and with great unity. And this is what we need to do, and to ensure that we spread opportunity, and we make more and more opportunities available to the people of South Africa through empowering one another. Empowering one another, I mean, I can give you one other example. Even amongst white people who are the most privileged in our country, we also found that the women, white women, you could say, were relegated to the back. They did not have the opportunities that this new democracy has opened up. And many of them, if they dare to be brave, do say, yes, this democratic era has opened up opportunities for all of us. And a number of those who were privileged in the past do own up that, yes, this democratic South Africa has enlarged and opened up more opportunities. I forever remember the front page of one of the business magazines in our country, which the Financial Mail years ago, which had a front page that, it's an English-speaking business magazine, but it had a front page that says, yes, that is lekker. Something like that, and which was showing how even white businesses are thriving, and how, yes, white people are also progressing. And we don't, begrudge them, but we say, include everyone. Let us all thrive. Let us all be inclusive. and let the women of our country who were the most oppressed, and we often say that black women suffered under the triple oppression that existed, because they were women, they were working class, and because they were black. And similarly, a number of groups in our country did suffer under that. So this era that we are in, particularly the government of national unity, where we've united even parties that are completely on the other side of the spectrum, are now committed to working together. And I forever remember a conversation last night which revolved around land, where even those who are on opposite sides were saying, yes, we are finding each other in working together to make sure that land is distributed to our people. And that, for me, is what you could have called the miracle of the past, but this is what defines what we are as South Africa now, working together, moving forward. This is the era where we must embrace all those processes and interventions that unite us rather than divide us. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable President. I'm now inviting the follow-up question from Honorable Gerike, EFF.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon to you.
I so dearly wish to have called you Comrade Matamela this afternoon.
Why don't you?
But your partnership with colonialists and racists and fundamentalists has effectively exonerated you from the title Comrade. Be that as it may, Mr. President, die EFF in sy beleidsdokumente stipuleer dat breinmense is ook agtergeblewe en breinmense moet dieselfde behandel word in terme die gelyke indiensnemingswet of die wet op gelyke indiensneming. Yes. Dit wil egter voorkom dat die praktyk sê vir ons dat hoofsaaklik en uitsluitlik etniese swart Suid-Afrikaners baat gevind het by die wet op gelyke indiensneming. Now the question is that the Employment Equity Act was introduced to bring about equality, fair racial and gender representation in the workplace, and mostly young white South Africans have fallen prey to the agencies selling international opportunities and subsequently left the country with their skill and expertise. Colored and Indian minorities have mainly remained in the country in the hope that they will be counted in when opportunities arise, many of whom are still at home with degrees, without employment opportunities. The EFF is asking whether the President has considered reviewing the Employment Equity Act and all other labor-related legislation in order to include these groups in active employment opportunities. If so, please provide details in this regard, as well as timeframes that your government will put in place, Mr. President. Ons het kinders, we have children, we have family, and we have relatives. They are qualified, they sit at home with honors degrees, with master's degrees, and they do not have employment. Please give us some clarity in this regard. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable President.
Honourable Chairperson, indeed, the problem of unemployment cuts right across the various national groups. And we cannot now sit here and say it only applies to one group. And of course, because of the history that we have had and the structure of our socioeconomic situation, it will affect other groups more than others. And as it turns out, what the Honourable Member is saying, yes, is happening, but let me say that it's not all white young people who are leaving the country. It's not true. A number of white young people are here in South Africa and they are finding opportunity. Opportunity now, we need to deal with the imbalance, which I spoke about earlier in my main reply. But just to get to the point, opportunities are open to all. And we would like, even yes, those who are sitting at home without employment with degrees and honors degrees, and be they colored, be they African, be they white, they should find space in the economic life of our country. Now, our economy has not been growing at the level that will create widespread employment. And this is precisely what we are seeking now to achieve. We want our economy to grow on an inclusive basis so that it can open up opportunities for all. And those opportunities, as they open up, must never be seen as being opportunities for a particular national group. We want all opportunities to be open for all. And that is why we say South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Now, as I was saying earlier, measures and laws like the employment equity are meant to encourage and enable all of us, to empower the people of South Africa as a whole to accede to the level where indeed we have an economy that is inclusive, that serves all and not a particular racial group, as we have had in the past. And if you picture what we had in the past and picture what we want to achieve, that is when you will see that the measures and the laws that we've put in place are meant to get us there. And they are meant to serve as encouragement, as enabling processes that will get us there. And all of it will pivot around what is set out in our Constitution: equality, fairness of treatment, and fair and equal opportunity for all. And that is what every South African should be absolutely sure about, that whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're disabled, whether you have any other characteristic, the Constitution of our country is there as an enabling and empowering document that protects all and should be seen as enabling all of us to accede to a better life. And that is the one guarantee that every South African should have, that I will never be badly treated, that I should never be relegated to the back, and I should never be refused to have opportunities because of the color of my skin, my national group, the region where I come from, or any other characteristic. So fairness, equality is what our Constitution promises us, and we need to work to ensure that it delivers precisely that. Thank you, National Chair, House Chair. No, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Honorable President. We now move on to the last follow-up question, which is asked by Honorable Dlamini. Honorable Dlamini, due to your condition, if you are not comfortable, you can address us seated. Honorable President, she's got the disability. So with your permission as well, she may sit down if she so feels.
I can stand. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Khotso Ntate President.
Dumela.
Indeed, Honorable President, the society that lives in inequalities shall never realize its full potential in terms of transformation, be economically and otherwise. And we can promise the people of South Africa that under the leadership of His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa and the collective, the leadership we have is quite all right. They don't have to worry. My question is whether the sectoral numerical targets shows progress in government's efforts to rally all sectors of society, particularly the private sector, to ensure the equitable representation of people of designated groups, particularly historically disadvantaged people and vulnerable groups at all occupational levels in the workforce and at the management, senior management level. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable President.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Member. The laws, the regulations, and the conventions that we are seeking to engender in our body politic are meant to encourage everyone, to cajole everyone, to raise the level of consciousness that we are better off being all-inclusive rather than exclusive. We are a country that operated on the basis of exclusiveness, where many were excluded and a few were included. And that is why, in many ways, our economy has been operating over many generations on a few cylinders than what it should have been operating on. And you see it now today. As we empower more and more women into various positions, we are finding that we begin to raise the level of performance, be it in the economy, be it in politics, in leadership positions. We can see that the inclusivity that we are seeking to achieve is actually something that stands us in good stead. It is good to be inclusive. It is good to have women participating in every endeavor of life. It is good, yes, to have people from vulnerable groups also participating, people who have been marginalized, people who are disabled, people who have a number of other challenges that they face. When we include them, then we become a better nation. We become better in everything. So I'm a firm believer in saying that we need enabling processes, enabling rules, regulations. So that's why I say the Black Economic Empowerment Act, the employment equity should never be seen as burdens. They should be seen as empowering, enabling processes that we need to embark upon to reach that nirvana, that higher level of existence. And then we will say, yes, we are truly this wonderful, diverse nation that has acceded to reaching out for a better life for all. So we want to encourage the private sector. We want to encourage even those who have held to views that in the past just said that we are okay as we are, ourselves only. And it is better in every endeavor in life when we open up and we include everyone. Together and united, we are stronger. Divided, we are weaker. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable President. We are now moving to the last question, which is asked by Honourable Nonkanyane from ANC. Over to you, President.
Honourable Chairperson, honourable members, the growth of criminal extortion in several parts of the country is contributing to a climate of fear, of lawlessness in our country. Extortion has a great economic cost, disrupting business activity, delaying and halting the construction of infrastructure, and generally raising the cost of doing business. South African Police Service is directing its response to these crimes to areas where they are most prevalent. For example, the police have established the Eastern Cape Provincial Extortion Forum, specifically to address extortion-related issues in the province. An organized crime task team has also been established to investigate all extortion cases reported in the province. A multidisciplinary approach has been adopted that includes crime intelligence and the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation. A modus operandi and target analysis has been conducted. This has confirmed that the identified gangs are operating in syndicates to commit organized criminal activities. The cases are therefore being dealt with in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. This focuses on the identified gang leaders to neutralize the activities of the syndicate. The investigation is conducted in collaboration with the National Prosecuting Authority and other relevant stakeholders. This includes cooperation with the Asset Forfeiture Unit to ensure that the proceeds of crime are recovered by the state. The police have deployed more unified police officers, including certain specialized visible policing capabilities to identify hotspots to provide a visible policing deterrent. An extortion hotline has also been established in the Eastern Cape. This will soon be established nationally. The hotline enables community members to report any form of crime or violence perpetrated by these criminal gangs to ensure a rapid and focused response. The extortion hotline has received approximately 1,300 calls. These calls have resulted in 36 cases and 11 inquiries being registered for investigation by the Organized Crime Task Team. In addition, an extortion and kidnapping task force forum has been established. This includes or involves all relevant stakeholders, including business entities themselves. The task force forum meets monthly to identify trends regarding extortion and kidnapping, thereby ensuring a well-informed and collaborative approach. The growth of extortion syndicates is indeed of great concern. It has therefore been prioritized by our law enforcement agencies, working together with a variety of stakeholders across government and across society. We are confident that by working together, we will be able to defeat these criminals. As the Minister of Police has said, we are coming after you. And indeed, I do believe that the vigor and the agility that is being injected in our criminal justice system, we will be able to get on top of this. And let me say that if you look back into history and look at what has happened in a number of countries, some of them are going through the same challenge, and some have gone through the same challenge. And we will also overcome this challenge. We are addressing it vigorously with a great deal of commitment that has been demonstrated not only by our minister and deputy ministers, but also by our MECs in various provinces and our police officials. This is an area that we have indeed are focusing on, just like we are focusing on a number of other areas to stem the tide of criminality in our country. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. I'm now inviting a follow-up question from Inkosi Nonkonyane Ndabezitha.
Chairperson and honorable members, Mr. President, good late afternoon. Chair,
Yep.
I think I must place on record that I observed that our leader of our party and the head of state has been personally attacked by some of the honorable members. I would like to place on record that we're not amused about that and we're taking a gravest exception to it. Now, Mr. President, Your Excellency, thank you very much for responding to this question and for assuring all peace-loving South Africans that indeed your government, our government, is up to the challenge. It is clear that the extortion is a rapidly worsening problem throughout South Africa. Many townships and rural areas are increasingly becoming a host to a menacing shadow economy, with money, services, and goods being extorted from an increasingly wide range of businesses, including spaza shops, nightclubs, construction, transport companies, as well as individuals. Now the question arising from your response, Your Excellency, is the government looking at rigorous measures to government services centers such as schools, clinics, hospitals, and government offices from falling to the prey of extortionists, gangs rather, and criminals? Thank you, Chair.
Inkosi Ndabezitha. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Nkosi yami, ndikuve kahle kodwa ndive uthetha ngama night clubs, wazi intoni nge night club wena? Honorable Chairperson, yes, the answer to the Honorable Member is yes, we are focusing on these type of criminal activities also extending not only to businesses and other entities, but also to government service centers such as schools, hospitals, and government offices. So that also becomes an area of focus to prevent any form of extortion that could happen in all those places. We are troubled and concerned, but at the same time we're taking action by the activities of extortionists and indeed kidnappers who prey on the vulnerabilities of those who are running their businesses and those who are subjected to kidnappings. We are troubled by that, but as I alluded to in my main reply, we are taking action and taking steps to address these challenges. And a great deal of progress will be made. And I found that when our police do focus on an area of criminal activity, we do make a great deal of progress, particularly when the various legs of our police service, both local, provincial, and national, work together. We are able to make a great deal of progress. Our National Police Commissioner has been, for instance, in areas like the Eastern Cape on a number of occasions where we have found extortion to be rife, and it's not only in the Eastern Cape, it also extends to many other provinces, and we are focusing on stemming the tide of extortion throughout our country. And in the course of doing so, we are dealing with criminality. Those who want to perpetrate criminal acts are going to be brought to book, as our Minister and Deputy Ministers have committed. That is something that we are going to do to good effect. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. We are now taking a follow-up question from Honorable Mcinga Ndlovukazi.
Ndiyabulela,
kusebukhosini la NCOP.
Ndiyabulela Chair, Bota Mongameli.
Ewe.
Mongameli, umbuzo wam umncinci uthi into yokokuba, are you going to declare extortion as a state crisis namhlanje? I-extortion njengoba utshilo President into yokokuba ihlukumeza abantu isizwe sakho President, ude wakhupha ne-task force yakho watsho into yoba phe Eastern Cape in the Home of Legends into yokokuba uthumele abantu bakho, uthumele iteam yakho ngoba uyibonile nawe into bingxaki khona. Umbuzo wami ke President uthi into yokokuba, are you going to declare extortion a national crisis? Please, Mr. President, use your powers. As lawmakers, I'm also a lawmaker now. And I know that we in this house, we have the power to amend laws. Use your powers in the Constitution, President. If there's a challenge with the law that won't allow you to make this declaration, you have my vote. This will be the first vote of the EFF that will allow with you extortion, maybe a national crisis. President, people are living in fear. People are not safe. Schools have closed down, President. The school of the blind and the deaf has closed down in Umtata. Kids are not going to school because bayoyika. Kuwesa Gqeberha, President, i-businesses ziyavalwa. Umntu xa ene-flats uzawuthiwa into yoba ii-flats eziyi-13 zezethu, eziyi-3 zezakho, unozayibhatala njani ibond? Ndithetha mna ngumntu olapha kwipalamente onezo zinto, utata luhlala apha cangwam. Ithi ke le nto President into yokokuba this is a national crisis. Ndiyakucela President into yokokuba ukhe nje ubamamela abantu ngoba mna ndilapha ndimi apha. Andithethi nje ndingunolibaba lomcinga ndi-EFF qha, ndithetha ndingabantu. Abantu bayakhala President, abantu bayafa, igazi liyaphalala. Namapolisa ayoyika.
Isikhathi sesishayile Ndlovukazi.
Enkosi. Undivile uPresident alala.
Ewe. Mongameli.
Honorable Chairperson, ndiyavuya ukuva ukuthi if we were to embark on anything sinayo vote ye-EFF. Honorable Chairperson Ndlovukazi has spoken with a great deal of passion and a great deal of deep feeling out of the challenges that we are facing on the issue of extortion. And it is precisely this recognition that has made me give the initial reply that I gave, that we are now focusing our attention more and more on extortion. She would desire that we declare it as a national crisis. It is a crisis, and I don't know whether you meant declare it as a state of disaster. But it is a crisis that we are addressing. To have a state of disaster, we need to deploy resources, and the efforts and the initiatives that we are making and are embarking on now are meant to stem the tide of extortion, and we would like to see how the combination of every effort that we have embarked upon is going to make an impact. And I do believe that it will make an impact, and we will be able to eliminate this criminal activity. a combination of our crime intelligence capability, our policing capability, both visible and otherwise, and our various other capabilities through task teams, task forces that we're putting in place, will, to a large extent, be able to address this. And our minister is embarking on this with a great deal of vigor and focus throughout the whole country. And obviously, the Eastern Cape, Umtata and Gqeberha, and indeed here in Cape Town as well, we've seen incidents of extortion, and in Gauteng and a number of provinces, including KZN. That is just happening, and we are focusing on it. And I do believe that with the measures that the police are putting in place, it will happen. And of course, we want, as I said earlier, through the forums that we are putting in place, we want a collaborative process where we all work together, because in the main, it is our people in the communities who know who the extortionists are and who know where they operate. And it is when we combine crime intelligence and the intelligence and information gathering of our own people that we will be able to have these activities stopped. The hotline that has been set up in certain areas, which will soon be national, is going to help in that regard as well, so that we are able to deal with them as they embark on their activities. So, sizayenza njalo ke njengoba sowushilo Ndlovukazi, nevote yakho ikhona, hayi yonke into izahamba kakuhle.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. We are now moving on to a follow-up, which is made by MKP Party, Honorable Mokoena.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't greet you earlier on. I'm sorry. I think I got a bit of a nervous speaking to the President for the first time. So, Honourable President, good afternoon. Indaba ye-extortion, President, has gone far worse than just edorobheni, noma lapho kwenziwa khona normal course of business. It's now gotten down or streamlined all the way down to indawo zabantu, the rural areas, komhlaba uyalingana, konongoma, even komashu, komlazi. It's gone as far down as that, but we are more concerned about areas where, like Umtata, where it is alleged that a chief was found to have allegedly been part and parcel or a leader of an extortion gang. It's alleged. It is alleged. We are then concerned about areas where the state has put these chiefs and indunas in place and are recognizing them. And it's now found that those very people or induna namakhosi endaweni zabantu abamnyama izona impela ke manje esezenza kube bukhuni for abantu abamnyama ukuthi bahlale endlini zabo bahlala ngokusaba. Kuphinde futhi kube khona lento, let's face the facts, ngisho namaphoyisa kulezi indawo kunabantu abangathintwa amaphoyisa okwaziwayo ukuthi nje abathintwa ngoba basaba induna noma basaba amakhosi. Iliphi iqhaza esolithatha njengohulumeni noma iyiphi hope esonika abantu endaweni zabo zokuhlala zokuthi usizo liyeza luza futhi quickly, because abantu bahleli kabuhlungu endaweni zabo. Siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Noma ungathi uthukile kancane uyangibona ukuthi nayi angilumi. So awufanele ukuthi uthuke nakancane nje. So masiqeda lapha ngizoqhawula ukuthi i-nervousness yakho yehle ngempela. Honorable Chairperson, imizamo esiyenzayo uma uyibheka yonke yokwenza sure ukuthi criminal intelligence yenza umsebenzi wayo, amaphoyisa ahamba emgwaqweni nalapho kuhlala khona abantu bakithi bayenza umsebenzi wabo, and all these other agencies as amaphoyisa or the criminal justice system are aimed at ensuring that we stem this tide of extortion and eliminate it. It is a new wave of criminality that obviously we've got to deal with, and it has been in the making, having started in certain parts of our country, and it's now spreading, as you correctly say. In a way, kwaqala ngaleanto ya o Matelu ukubona. And then they started just wreaking havoc in building sites and saying that they want 30% of that and so on. Basebeba a construction mafia. And we are now going after them. We are also going for the extortionists. So what we can say to our people is that with the efforts that we are putting in place, through the various task forums that we are putting in place, we will be able to get a good amount of information about how these extortionists work and who they are. And as you say, unfortunately, in some instances, not all, we're finding that there are people who are involved, who are operating as either officers and police. Some of them get involved. They get tempted and they get lured into all these, and they then don't execute their jobs. And we want, in the end, to ensure that we get rid of such tendencies amongst those who are meant to protect our people. So we want all our people to work together in these forums that we are setting up, so that whatever information is there and available about people who are acting in a way that they are not expected to act, we should be able to deal with a view of getting rid of the criminality of extortion. So we will get there, and we will be able to give our people the assurance that as we deal with these extortionists, we will reduce incidents of criminality throughout the country. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are now coming to the last follow-up question, which is asked by Honorable Badenhorst, DA.
Right here, Mr. President. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Mr. President, deja vu. 11 months ago in this very House, you were asked a similar question to the one being asked by Nkosi Nkonyana today. The original question emanates from your 2020 State of the Nation address, where you said, Mr. President, and I quote, "Special units would be established in every province to combat the scourge of construction mafia," unquote. Your response, Mr. President, at that time included reference to the establishment of 20 economic infrastructure task teams throughout the country, with 946 experienced and knowledgeable members from police units like crime intelligence, visible policing, detective and forensic services, and the Hawks.
Yeah.
Their processes, resources, and intelligence were to be integrated, working with other role players, including the National Prosecuting Authority, Financial Intelligence Centre, relevant government departments, the South African Revenue Service, and state-owned enterprises.
Yeah.
You furthermore assured this House that more than 37 million rand was going to be made available between 2022 and 2024 financial years to combat this. More significantly, Mr. President, you concluded by assuring the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens of South Africa the following, and I'm quoting again. "So, all these matters are now being focused on vigorously. We are going to go after those gangs. We are going to go after those people who hijack building sites and all that," unquote. Despite these promises, Mr. President, made nearly a year ago, activities of the construction mafia has increased. The practice of extortion has proliferated. In fact, they now also target small businesses through the so-called business forums. From, as mentioned before, the School for the Deaf and Blind in Mthatha, to a 64-year-old Kraaifontein grandmother who sold food on the side of the road. That was her only crime. Mr. President, taking all that has been said today into account, do you not think it's a fair assessment to say that you have failed to deliver on the promise you made last year to deal with these purveyors of extortion and misery? Thank you.
Honorable President.
Let's hold it into account.
Okay.
Address the elephant in the room.
Honorable President, please, Honorable Badinos, don't disturb the President. He wants to speak to your question.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Badenos is taking advantage of sitting very close to where I am. And in a very direct way, trying to intimidate me. And I want to say to you, I will not be intimidated by you. But Honorable Chair and Honorable Badinos and Honorable members, indeed, Honorable Badinos is raising a very important issue, which we've been addressing for all this time. We are making progress, and obviously because of the enormity of the problem and how widespread it has become, there's so much to do, and the progress that we are making is being done step by step. And as we move forward, I do believe that, yes, progress will be made. Many of the things that you are saying, setting up the task teams, are being done and have been done. And the vigor that I spoke of is being more and more injected in what we are doing. If you look at, for instance, the activities of our key and top police officials in a number of provinces, that is already beginning to show itself. And our Minister of Police and his deputies are already becoming so hands-on on what needs to be done. And this is a problem that obviously is also a challenge that we face with regard to the lack of economic growth. And where there is lack of economic growth, criminality becomes one of the byproducts. But it is a byproduct, a horrible one, that we need to deal with, and which is precisely what we have determined and decided that we will do. So we are having to deal with a multiplicity of problems. And when it comes, for instance, to deploying very experienced police officers, and those who will focus on this, of course, we are training more and more police and bringing them into the group of those who are well experienced. Does take time as well, but we are addressing it. The construction mafia criminality we are also addressing and focusing on it. In a number of areas, I'm told it's beginning to taper down, talking to people who are involved also in the sector, but it is still uncomfortably high. We still need to do much more. And what I can say is that this is an ongoing task that we need to continue tackling. And Honorable Badinos, we will remain focused and we will remain with the vigor and inject even more vigor that is required to deal with this. We will succeed. My view is that, yes, much as you might say, we're not showing the desired results, but there will be results, and we will be able to show progress as we move on. And yes, I keep hearing GNU. Yes, the Government of National Unity and a combination of the skills and the experiences and the efforts that all of us will make, we will be able to get on top of this and succeed in bringing down the levels of criminality and extortion in a number of areas in our country. And I do repeat that, yes, we are coming after the criminals, and they are being dealt with the various interventions like Operation Chanela. We've been able to bring behind bars many of those who have perpetrated a number of acts of criminality. And our prisons are now burgeoning. Yesterday, Minister Groenewald was saying, I'm getting an influx of so many people in our prisons. That shows that we now have another added problem. An added problem because we're becoming effective. We are now going after the criminals and putting them behind bars, and that is why the doors of Dr. Groenewald's prisons are now opening and adding more and more people. So many efforts are being made. We are not at a standstill, and this will take time, but we are on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. Once again, we would like to take this opportunity and thank you, Honorable President, for taking your time and present yourself before the NCOP for the response to oral questions. And I'm sure that honorable members will agree with me. Honorable President, you may take your seat. Let me tell. Order, honorable members, the House is still in session. Having said that, Honorable President, we wish you all the best in your endeavor in making sure that you transform the livelihood of South Africans. We know that you have committed yourself to transform and change the lives. We remain indebted in making sure that we do execute our responsibility of holding executive accountable as Parliament. Having said that, honorable members, I would request that we take a 15 minutes suspension of this session to allow the President to make his way out. We will then come back to finish the business of the day. Thank you.